Good evening and welcome to a special edition of Face to Face. For the Newsfirst team, I'm Niresh Eliathambi. Today is the 30th of July, which makes it the World Day Against Trafficking in Persons. A very important day indeed. And to discuss this and the problem of human trafficking, I have with me Minoli, who is the head of the protection unit at the International Organization for Migration, IOM, for Sri Lanka and the Maldives. Good to have you, and good evening, Minoli.
Good evening, thank you.
And we also have Major Sandun Gunawardane, who is a legal officer attached to the Ministry of Defense. Good evening, Major. Good to have you.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Right. So, Major, let me start with you. For the benefit of our viewers, could you briefly describe what we mean by human trafficking?
Well, if I simply explain without going into complex legal terms, human trafficking can be defined as selling persons for private gains. So it may lead to some other sub questions. So whether it is legal law, can we do that type of things? So going by the international and domestic laws, this is absolutely illegal, and it is unethical, and it is prohibited by the all laws and regulations. But the racketeers are doing these type of things. So as I discussed, in any transaction, there may be main three elements. At first, there should be a seller, and also secondly, there should be a buyer, and also thirdly and most importantly, there should be an object, item or good or something like that to be sold. Unfortunately and very pathetically, in human trafficking, this object is also identified as a human being. So you all will agree with me, no person will voluntarily consent to be sold. So the racketeers have the ways and means to get their consent to be sold. So so they take this consent by way of force, fraud, inducement, by way of deception, or sometimes the traffickers may misuse the vulnerability of that particular person. For instance, where a person is struggling with some financial difficulties, of course, the racketeers can easily deceive these type of persons to traffic. So promising foreign employment, maybe local employments with decent salaries and facilities and etc. etc. So at the end of the day, very pathetically, innocent, vulnerable persons, including children and women, will be the victims of human trafficking. So now it is equally important to identify the purposes of human trafficking as well. So traffickers may traffic person for sexual exploitation and for forced labor and for forced criminality and for organ removals, very pathetically, and also victims may be employed in mercenary groups during the warfares, and also sometimes they may be employed in various types of trades, whether it is legal or illegal, without the consent of that persons. So now with the development of the human rights around the globe, the people may think that the slavery is over, it has come to a standstill. But nowadays the slavery has come in a different form, that is human trafficking. So members of our human family are selling their own members for their personal gain. So briefly, I can say that is human trafficking.
So that's a very pathetic situation indeed, Major. Thank you for that definition, and a wide range of users of human trafficking, which perhaps our viewers were unaware of. Now, Minoli, let's talk about some of the emerging trends in the region. And we've heard a lot about cyber-enabled trafficking. Could you elaborate on that? This, what does it mean, cyber-enabled trafficking, and these cyber scams and forced criminality in the cyber arena?
Yes. Thank you, Niresh. I think, as Major Sandun mentioned, when it comes to human trafficking, there can be different forms. Of course, before the COVID-19 pandemic and the economic crisis, the risk profiles of victims or the different forms of human trafficking that we observed in Sri Lanka was quite different. For example, Sri Lankans getting trafficked to other countries for forced labor. There can be internal trafficking from rural areas, sometimes to the cities, urban areas. Women and children can get trafficked. These were the most common and the prevalent forms of trafficking that we observed maybe about 5-6 years ago. But now, I think since 2023, beginning of 2023, actually, that's when IOM Sri Lanka was informed, or rather we were basically communities or the general public started contacting us, individuals, the families. They wanted our support to repatriate victims. So during the past 2 years, I think IOM has been involved in the safe and dignified return, repatriation of over 120 Sri Lankan victims who were trafficked to the Southeast Asian region for cyber scamming, basically. We call it trafficking for forced criminality, where people, especially young people, between the ages of 20 to 35 years, young men, predominantly young men, and also women, they were promised lucrative employment opportunities in a particular Southeast Asian country. They were promised high wages, and they were told that they have to work as customer care executives in the IT sector. So all these offers were made through social media or through known contacts, sometimes relatives, family members, friends. So when such an offer is made, people tend to rely on these kind of offers, and unfortunately they fell prey to these trafficking related incidents. So what happened was they were promised jobs, but ultimately when they went to that particular country, it was used as a transit, and then there were other countries that had scamming compounds, so they were trafficked to different countries and compelled to commit cyber crimes. So that's completely not what once they reached these destinations, that's not what they expect. I mean, basically the situation was drastically different. They were given targets. They were not paid at all. Basically no proper working hours, and if they don't reach the given targets, they were physically abused, exploited, and harassed. So they were forced to commit scamming, cyber scamming, cyber-related crimes in those compounds.
Right. So when you say cyber-related scams, it's all the scams that we know go on the internet, where people befriend you, offer, it can be services, love, sex, all kinds of things, and basically dupe you into paying them, isn't it?
Yes.
Or even making donations.
Yes, it can be romantic scams, it can be related to cryptocurrency. So these were some of the common forms that we observed when we spoke to the victims.
Right. And most of these scams originating, let's say, in Southeast Asia, are they targeting Western countries 100%, or are there other targets as well?
Western countries, as well as there are other targeted regions. So it's predominantly, I would say, Western countries, but I mean, it basically affects, it's basically a global, it has become a global phenomenon now.
Right. So Minoli, there is perhaps some slight confusion over human trafficking and human smuggling. Could you differentiate between those two for us?
Yes. Human trafficking is a crime. It's a punishable offense according to Sri Lankan law. And that's when a person is deceived. Like I mentioned, a person is given a good job offer, but once the person reaches the destination, it's completely different. So deception, coercion, fraud is always involved in human trafficking, and ultimately the purpose is exploitation. The person can be subjected to forced labor, sexual exploitation, or trafficking for forced criminality, or it can be even trafficking for the removal of organs, different forms of trafficking. But if you take human smuggling, because we also see these two terms being conflated sometimes by the general public, sometimes on media we see people tend to conflate the two terms or get confused with the terms. Human smuggling is where it happens, it's a consensual, basically an offense. The person voluntarily agrees to be smuggled. You pay someone, a human smuggler, and you get the services of the human smuggler to cross an international border illegally. So often forged visas, forged documents, forged travel documents are often involved in human smuggling. So the person knows that he or she is doing something illegal and violates usually the immigration and immigration laws of that particular country. So
right. Major Sandun, would you like to elaborate on this as well?
Yes, building upon what Minoli said, in human smuggling, at a glance we can see two main malpractices. At first, documentary fraud is there. So the person who is crossing the border, they might have prepared fraudulent documents like, as Minoli said, passport or visa or other certificates or etc. etc. The secondly, that person with intention has violated the immigration and immigration laws. So unlike in human smuggling, in human trafficking, the person who is crossing the border, so that also can be taken place within the country also, but he has been subjected to fraud, force, inducement or so deception. So as a result of that, the person who is crossing the border in human trafficking is identified as a victim. So we are trying to protect him. So law is there to protect the victims of human trafficking. But unlike in human trafficking, in human smuggling, the person who is crossing the border is knowingly and willfully committing an offense. As a result of that, law is there to take legal action against that particular person. And also, human trafficking is an offense committed against an individual or a group of persons. But human smuggling is an offense committed against a particular state. For instance, if someone is trying to go to Australia from Sri Lanka, so he should be travel by air through a recognized, legally recognized airport, and when that person is trying to travel by sea, that is absolutely subjected to human smuggling. So these are the main differences between human trafficking and human smuggling. So especially law enforcement authorities should have a very comprehensive knowledge about this. Otherwise, the victims of human trafficking will be wrongfully identified as human smugglers and legal action will be taken against them. They will be further harassed. And also, the human smugglers will be wrongfully understood, and as a result of that, they will avoid the prosecution. So it's very important to identify the difference between human trafficking and human smuggling.
Right. Minoli, what is the international legal framework on this? The conventions and what is Sri Lanka signatory to? What's the global scenario?
I think when it comes to human trafficking, the main definition related to international definition related to human trafficking is contained in the UN Convention against trafficking in persons, basically to punish, suppress and prevent trafficking in persons. So this UN Convention, or rather the UN protocol we say, This particular protocol is part of a broader UN convention called UN Convention Against Transnational Organized Crime. So this convention and the protocol came into force globally in the year 2000, and Sri Lanka ratified this UN convention in 2015. So when a country, a state ratifies a convention, there are legal obligations involved. That means that particular state should enact laws. For example, the parliament should enact laws and ensure that the ratified convention, or rather the agreed provisions, are part of the national law. So although this convention was ratified in 2015, Aniresh, but even way before that, I think the Sri Lankan government has taken proactive measures to amend the Sri Lankan law and make human trafficking a punishable offense in Sri Lanka. That was back in 2006. So the UN convention talks about, it has a very detailed definition on what human trafficking is. So whenever a state introduces laws, the definition should largely align with that UN convention, and the convention, or rather the protocol, we call it the Palermo Protocol, it also has certain, I think, rights, obligations of victims, the states, what should the states do in order to protect the rights of the victims, and what we should do about prevention. So a lot of information is contained in this legal instrument.
Right. Major Sandun, can I bring you in to explain how our domestic laws in this regard are actually being enforced on the ground? What's the local scenario?
Yes, as Minoli very well explained, Sri Lanka is signatory to the United Nations Convention Against Transnational Organized Crimes, and we have ratified that particular protocol as well, specially drafted to prevent, suppress and prosecute trafficking in person. So as a state party to this both international legal instrument, Sri Lanka is bound to take necessary actions to implement the provisions included in these legal instruments. Accordingly, having considered all these things, Act number 16 of 2006 has been introduced as an amendment act to the Sri Lankan Penal Code. So in terms of the section 360C subarticle 1 of the said amendment act, human trafficking is recognized as a severely punishable offense. A person who is guilty of this offense may be punished with an imprisonment from 2 years up to 20 years, having considered the gravity and the nature of the offense committed. When this offense is committed, particularly against a child, the minimum imprisonment will be started from 3 years, and that can also be extended to 20 years. So when we carefully read this particular 360C subarticle 1 of the amended act with the provisions and schedules of the Code of Criminal Procedure of Sri Lanka, so this offence is identified as a cognizable offence. That means any peace officer can arrest a suspect of human trafficking without a court warrant. And also this offence is also identified as a non-bailable offence. That means at the magistrate court level, a suspect cannot request bail. Instead of that, he should submit his bail application to the relevant high court with jurisdiction in that particular area. It is not an easy task. And also this offence is recognized as a non-compoundable offence. That means there is no room for any type of settlement during the court process. Also with out of the court there is no any settlement at all. Therefore, when a suspect is identified, he should be submitted, he should be produced before the court, and he should be punished by the court of law as per the laws and regulation. So going by these legal surroundings, we can say that we have a robust legal mechanism to curb this heinous crime. But as Minoli mentioned earlier, with the modern trends, human trafficking has become a cybercrime also. So most of the time, the racketeers are using this cyberspace to hoodwink the person and to traffic them. So impersonation is there. Sometimes they are acting as the famous politicians and cricketers, athletics and celebrities for the purpose of deceiving person. So frankly speaking, in order to address these type of areas, in Sri Lanka we do not have a proper cyber monitoring mechanism, unlike in other countries. So we are getting such information from other countries. So having considered these lacunas of existing procedural and substantive law, the Ministry of Defence has taken initiatives to introduce new cyber security laws. So I feel optimistic in the near future, when these laws come into operation, we shall be able to effectively address the type of new trends of human trafficking as well.
Right, so we're likely to see some upgrades to our laws, although our laws are fairly robust at the moment. Okay, thank you very much, Major Sandun. We need to take a short commercial break. I'm in conversation with Minoli Don and Major Sandun Gunawardane. Don't go away, we'll be right back.
Chamatkar Raratriya, an enchanting night awaits. A tribute to timeless legends, a celebration of melodies that echo through generations. A heartfelt homage to two icons who defined the soundscape of a nation. Victor Ratnayakar and Priya Suryasena. Their songs shaped our stories. Their voices touched our souls.
Join us for a night of unforgettable performances by Nalin Pereira, Samitha Mudunkotua, Sanka Dine, Raini Charuka, Nadimal Pereira, Lakshita Suryasena, Hirushi Suryasena,
Chamatkar Raratriya, where legends live again. Musical direction by the brilliant Mahesh Nenipitiya. Every note will carry the soul of a legend. Mark your calendars for the 2nd of August from 6:30 p.m. onwards at the Muses College Auditorium. Tickets via theticketsministry.com. Don't miss the most heart-touching musical event of the year. Chamatkar Raratriya.
GDP around $30,000 billions, 30,000, but in Sri Lankan context we are just only 80 billions.
And one of the economic principle also say, with the trade, everybody better off.
Now, why he has reduced 44 to 30? That's what my point is all about, right? He's not playing kind of a trade game with us.
Now only the government, we are seeing that the provincial council election has completed and the people are appointed, but now only the infrastructure projects are being, the money is being deployed.
Face the Nation every Wednesday at 9:30 p.m. on TV1.
Send us your application with your name, your unique talent, your phone number to Sri Lanka's Got Talent PO Box 100 Ratmalana or WhatsApp us on 076 599 7788.
Welcome back to Face. I am with Major Sandun Gunawardane and with Minoli Don. Now, Minoli, you represent the IOM, which is the UN agency that deals with trafficking, human trafficking. Tell us about the role of the IOM globally and how the IOM works with countries and relevant law enforcement authorities.
The International Organization for Migration is the United Nations migration arm, migration entity. So IOM has a mandate to promote safe, orderly and regular migration. So our organization has 3 strategic objectives. One is to save lives, protect lives, save lives and protect people on the move. And secondly, driving solutions for displacement, and thirdly, facilitating regular migration pathways. In terms of our work, I think we work in 3 ways. One is providing technical support to states, to governments, especially in terms of developing legislation, developing strategies, and IOM was also involved in providing technical support to develop the current National Strategic Action Plan to monitor and combat human trafficking 2021 to 2025. That action plan actually concludes this year, and currently we are closely collaborating with the National Anti-Human Trafficking Task Force led by the Ministry of Defense, and we are providing technical support to develop a new 5-year action plan. So what is the important feature is when it comes to IOM, we of course support the governments in terms of technical assistance, but when developing policies, laws and strategies, we also ensure that the voices of the victims, survivors are meaningfully reflected in these policies, strategies. And also the non-governmental stakeholders, private sector entities, their considerations are also factored in when developing these important instruments. So one would be providing technical support, and secondly, I would say providing direct assistance to victims of trafficking. I think since 2017, Yuresh, to now, over 200 Sri Lankan victims have been assisted by IOM. And out of that, I think about over 120 during the past 2 years were trafficked to cyber scamming compounds, young male and also females. So providing direct assistance, so that means we closely collaborate with the Sri Lankan embassies abroad. IOM has 480 country offices and sub-offices across the world. So whenever we have, when we have our offices and sub-offices in a particular country, we closely coordinate with our office there, and also the destination country governments, and try to support the governments to rescue and provide immediate assistance. So as soon as a victim is rescued, what he or she requires is immediate assistance. So IOM provides that immediate support, sometimes directly, sometimes we collaborate with non-governmental organizations to provide shelter, food, medical support, psychosocial support, counseling, and then we facilitate the repatriation. Sometimes they don't have the travel documents, the traffickers confiscate the travel documents, we coordinate with the embassies and facilitate that process, and ultimately the safe repatriation. They come back to Sri Lanka, and then the reintegration. Reintegration is also important. Victim rescue, it does not end with victims being rescued. We also have to ensure that they don't fall into the cycle of re-trafficking. They need to be sustainably reintegrated. So when they come back to Sri Lanka, based on our resources, we develop reintegration plans with these survivors, and we look at the economic, social and psychosocial aspects of reintegration, and we develop a holistic plan. The important feature is when we are supporting these victims, we also try to get the support or collaborate with other entities. It can be private sector entities, NGOs, and more importantly, I think most importantly, the government stakeholders. Sometimes district divisional officers have counseling officers, economic development officers, foreign employment development officers. So it's important to leverage on these existing resources as well, so that there is continuity in the assistance. So second is direct assistance to victims, and third would be capacity building, training, awareness, and the media campaigns that we conduct and outreach activities that we conduct across Sri Lanka. So awareness is key to prevention, right? We say always, it's important for the general public to be aware of the crime, spot the signs in order to stop the crime and prevent this crime. So capacity building training, of course, to state officials, law enforcement, judiciary and community members, a wide array of stakeholders, of course, we do capacity building as well. So IOM works in these ways. We also have our counter-trafficking hotline that provides information, referrals and assistance to victims of trafficking.
Now, generally, how does one identify victims? Is it the local law enforcement which does so, and then the IOM is brought in, or what's the general scenario?
Okay, I think that's a good question actually. I think it's not only the responsibility of the government or the law enforcement to identify victims. I think this is why the general public needs to be aware that this is a crime, these are the signs, and every person, every citizen in this country has a responsibility, once the person identifies, recognizes the sign, to come forward and report it. So reporting can of course happen to the law enforcement, but they can also inform IOM. We have a counter-trafficking hotline and we do provide assistance to victims. Of course, when it comes to legal matters, the law enforcement authorities, the Sri Lankan government will come in and of course take appropriate action against the perpetrators. From our end, we try to support the victims after their rescue in their sustainable reintegration in terms of providing assistance.
Major Sandun, could you tell us a little bit about the activities of the National Anti-Human Trafficking Task Force, which is, I believe, a multi-ministerial departmental organization which basically drives anti-human trafficking activities?
Thank you, Nilesh, for the question. As we discussed earlier, human trafficking is an organized crime. So practically speaking, one entity or one person cannot fight this crime alone. So collective effort is needed to fight against this crime very effectively. So National Anti-Human Trafficking Task Force was established in 2010 under the purview of Ministry of Justice. And in 2021, the chairmanship was shifted to the Ministry of Defense for the purpose of getting assistance from the National Intelligence Services to fight against these crimes more effectively and in an organized manner. So National Anti-Human Trafficking Task Force comprises with various ministries such as Ministry of Defense, Ministry of Justice, Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Ministry of Labour, Ministry of Children and Women Affairs and Ministry of Public Security. So they all are working under one umbrella to effectively fight against this heinous crime. So there are some other entities which are function under these ministries, like powerful entities, Attorney General's Department, Criminal Investigation Department, Child Protection Authority, Victims and Witness Protection Authority, Telecommunication Regulatory Commission, the Bribery Commission, and we all are working together to curb this severe crime, and also in order to liberate the victims of human trafficking from the clutches of human traffickers. So we have main 4 objectives. The prevention is there. So when it comes to prevention, we know that prevention is better than cure. So it is essentially important to create awareness to prevent this crime. So we are conducting and we are engaging in various type of programs to create awareness among the public. In addition to that, we are trying to organize and conduct training programs to build the capacity of the law enforcement authorities. In the recent past, we worked with police department and with the Gramaladari officials at the grassroots level to empower them and to get their assistance to curb this crime. So when it comes to the protection, so not only we are considering the particular incidents, so we are trying to provide adequate safeguard for the victims of human trafficking. As Minoli said that sometimes they need legal assistance, sometimes they need medical assistance, sometimes they need psychological assistance. So we are trying to provide these things. We have competent authorities with us to provide that type of services. For example, judicial medical officers are working with us, and victims and witness protection authority is there, and Attorney General's department, police department. So we are collectively working together. So when it comes to the prosecution, you know, in the countries like Sri Lanka, some people are only adherent to the laws and regulation mainly due to the fear of punishment. Therefore, it is essential to effectively prosecute these perpetrators and punish them through the court of law. So, Attorney General's department and the police divisions are there to do that. And finally and conclusively, it is very important to build partnerships with others to collectively address this difficult issue, I mean the human trafficking. So, so we are doing that domestically and also at the international level. So we are very closely working with the UN agencies like IOM and UNODC, and we are also working with Bali process and also with other local non-government organizations and the private and public entities who are working with the same vision and mission to curb this heinous crime. So these are the main objectives, role and responsibilities of the National Anti-Human Trafficking Task Force in a nutshell.
Right, you mentioned the Bali process, and I must add here that our company, MTV
Exactly.
Channel Private Limited,
Yes.
is very actively involved in the Bali process and has been for several years, and even hosted some of the events here in Sri Lanka, because we believe that it's an extremely important national and international issue. Now, Minoli, we just have about 5 minutes left. Can I ask you about the typical profile of a trafficked person? Is there such a thing, or is it that victims span the gamut, or, you know, from let's say the middle class down to those in poverty? Who's more likely to fall prey?
Thank you, Niresh. I would say, I mean, maybe 3-4 years ago, right before COVID, the profile was completely different. Maybe due to lack of awareness, due to poverty, different reasons, sheer economic desperation, people used to get trafficked. But now we see relatively young people, educated, getting trafficked to the Southeast Asian region. So I don't think we can define the risk categories profiles, but of course we have made our observations. But when it comes to, I would say, challenges in victim identification, the main challenge is lack of awareness, because victims are not aware that it's trafficking. Sometimes they tend to normalize it's a normal incident. They don't even know that it's a crime, that they should come forward and report the crime. So lack of awareness is one. I think the economic desperation, vulnerabilities, because due to those incidents, sometimes people fall prey to traffickers. And then due to fear of reprisal, sometimes victims also, they don't come forward and report the crime. So there are challenges in victim identification, but I think awareness is the main factor. And when it comes to profiles of victims, of course, it varies.
Right. And we are almost out of time. So, Sandun, what message would you like to give the public on this very special day? What should they take away from this program?
Well, yes, today is the World's Day Against Human Trafficking. So the theme of this year is human trafficking is an organized crime. So as we emphasize throughout this discussion repeatedly, of course, it is an organized and complex crime. So as I mentioned earlier, no person can fight this crime along. So please join hands together to eradicate this crime from Sri Lanka, and also be vigilant, you will be safe. Thank you. I also take this opportunity on behalf of the Secretary Defence and also all members of the National Anti-Human Trafficking Task Force to thank Sirasa TV. Thank you very much for the opportunity given to us.
You're most welcome. And Minoli, your final thoughts looking at Sri Lanka and also the broader international landscape?
Yes. I think very recently we launched a media campaign titled "We are Vigilant for a Safer Nation" in collaboration with the National Anti-Human Trafficking Task Force. So the advertisements, I think, will be aired very soon, and they feature trafficking for forced labor, trafficking for forced criminality, internal trafficking for sexual exploitation. So we aim to raise awareness among the general public. So my key message would be for the general public to be vigilant, be informed, be aware of these signs, recognize the signs, and also to come forward and report the crime. And I think it's also important to highlight the collaborations and the cooperations that we have, not only with the government but also with media entities, especially Major Sandun mentioned the Bali process. I think your media entity, Sirasa and the Capital Maharaja Group played a very pivotal role in the Bali process business forum, government and business forum, and the forum was basically one of the forums were held in Sri Lanka. So such forums, the private sector cooperation, collaboration is also very much important. Media has a very important role to play to raise awareness. So my message would be vigilant, be informed, come forward and report the crime.
Thank you very much, and I'm afraid we are out of time. My thanks to my two very special guests tonight, Minoli Don, head of the protection unit at the International Organization for Migration, IOM, Sri Lanka and Maldives. Thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you.
And of course, Major Sandun Gunawardane, a legal officer at the Ministry of Defence, representing the ministry, of course, and speaking on the task force as well. Thank you very much, Major. And thank you to you at home for watching. Don't go away because the news is coming up next. Have a great evening.
TV1. TV for life.
Tsunami waves hit Russia and Japan after 8.8 magnitude earthquake off Russia. Tsunami warnings issued to multiple countries and islands lifted. 90-day on-arrival tourist visas for Sri Lankans visiting the Maldives. Former President Gotabaya Rajapaksa ready to testify over Lalit Kugan case. Representing attorneys inform court. Parliamentarian Rohitha Gunawardana's daughter, who surrendered to the Valana anti-corruption unit, arrested. Former Navy Commander Nishantha Ulugethanna further remanded. Public Security Minister orders special probe into letter written by opposition leader of the Yatinuwara Pradeshiya Sabha before committing suicide. 25% tariff on goods from India will be imposed if a trade deal isn't agreed upon by the 1st of August, says US President Trump. Army Commander Lasantha Rodrigo granted 1-year service extension.
TV1. TV for life.
GDP around $30,000 billion, 30,000, but in Sri Lankan context we are just only 80 billion.
And one of the economic principle also say, with the trade, everybody better off.
Now, why he has reduced 44 to 30? That's what my point is all about, right? He's not playing kind of a trade game with us.
Now only the government, we are seeing that the provincial council election has completed and the people are appointed, but now only the infrastructure projects are being, the money is being deployed.
Face the Nation every Wednesday at 9:30 p.m. on TV1.